Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we're going to take a look at Aimpoint's new pistol red dot sight, which actually I think it's more than just a red dot sight. It's actually developments in three separate areas. Now, of course, normally on Forgotten Weapons, we typically cover old historical firearms, but I'm also really interested in where the firearms industry is going in the future and upcoming developments in technology, and I know a bunch of you guys are as well. And this is a cool system because it's not just a new red dot, it's a new red dot that incorporates a number of really cool mechanical improvements along with a couple of cool software elements and, perhaps most radically, a really different and really good mounting solution. So rather than me sit back here and talk about it, let's just zoom straight in and let me show you how this whole thing works. The Aimpoint A-cut with the new COA red dot. So what Aimpoint wanted to do here was come up with a red dot that would fit well on a compact pistol, which is to say specifically a narrow pistol, because the concealed carry market is a major aspect of pistol sales, and they wanted to accommodate that market. If you have a concealed carry pistol, having an optic on it is a good idea. It's a move forward in firearms technology, but you don't want you don't want the dot to be wider than the gun itself. So they started looking at the RMSC profile and worked their way up from there. But they also wanted this new system to be lighter, to be smaller, of course, and to fit the durability standards that Aimpoint has for all of their military optics, which are grueling, to say the least. So this is functional down to 80 feet in water. Of course, these things they're not particularly relevant for the typical concealed carry user, but for military customers, they're waterproof down to 80 feet. They'll operate from like 50 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit up to 160 above, which you may think isn't particularly relevant unless you've ever put anything on the under the windshield of your car in Arizona parked out in the sunlight during the summer. But they wanted that durability along with small size, and that required making a number of changes from other existing dots on the market, specifically like the Acro P2. So I said that this has improvements in three different places, and I figure we'll start with the optic and then the software and then the mount. So the optic itself, the COA, what they have done is get rid of the whole inner tube of the optic. If you look at an Aimpoint Acro, you'll see that it has an outer housing and it has a tube inside, and when you're zeroing the Acro, what you're actually doing is moving that inside tube in three different dimensions in order to zero it. Essentially, the COA you could think of as the inside elements of an Acro without the outer shell, because instead of moving an inner tube, you are now actually moving the emitter itself, which is technologically a pretty impressive development. Just if you think about the minuteness of the threading required to have audible 1 MOA clicks on just the little LED emitter inside there, that's pretty impressive. By doing that, they're able to reduce the weight of the optic. They're also able to reduce the size substantially. So this has the same 15 millimeter square viewing window as the Acro, but it has the entire outside border removed. So it feels like a larger viewing area. And of course, the whole optic is narrower. It's 28 millimeters wide, which fits nicely on, well, actually, it fits nicely on both full-size and compact pistols. The mounting system they have works for basically all different pistol sizes, one of the other goals that they had in doing this. All right, one of the base dimensions setting the size and scale of the COA is the battery. This is designed to use a full-size CR2032 battery. So that gives it enough power, sitting here under the base, to run for 5 years of continuous on time. There are a total of, and this takes us into some of the software elements here, there are a total of 12 brightness settings. The first 4 are for night vision use. You then have 8 daytime settings, of which number 12, the brightest setting, is like super mega over the top brightness intended to be fully functional in like the worst looking into the sun sort of conditions in Afghanistan or perhaps southern Arizona. Now, of course, at brightness setting 12 there, you do not have 5 years of continuous on battery life. Something like the LED emitter in here has sort of a logarithmic energy use scale. The brighter it gets, well, as it gets brighter, the battery life decreases by substantially more with each step up. So what they did with the software is actually program in an automated step down system. If you have it above setting 9, every 2 hours it will automatically drop 1 position if it hasn't been adjusted, which means after 6 hours or so, it will have dropped down to setting 9, where you do get that extremely long constant on time, and setting 9 is bright enough for almost all uses. If it needs to be brighter than that, of course, you have to bump it up before you start shooting. Now, the other thing that can happen with this, especially for a concealed carry pistol that's carried tight on the body, is accidentally bumping the buttons. And that's something that I and people I know have actually run into, is had brightness settings adjust or even sights actually turn off from having the buttons hit inadvertently during, while being carried. So what they did here is the first time you press a button, it actually just functions to unlock the system. So if I want to adjust the brightness, I have to push either up or down twice. I don't know if we can see that doing anything on camera, probably not. Oh, all right, so the camera gives some really weird distortion here. That's why the dot looks so big. But the first time you hit a button, all it does is unlock the system. If I want to adjust the brightness, I have to press the button twice, and then I can change the settings. Once I stop, after a couple seconds, it locks again. So if I accidentally hit a button once while I'm carrying the gun, nothing happens. You have to hit 2 buttons, or the same button twice, within 3 seconds in order for it to actually change the setting, which is, it's one of those systems I think that's really cool in that it's simple, it's effective. You don't even necessarily have to know how it works or what it's doing for it to work and keep the sight from misbehaving on you. All right, the other really cool development here is the A-cut mounting system. So when they started, of course, like I said, they started looking at the RMSC shield. This is the sort of the most popular of the concealed carry red dots. The problem is the shield is attached, as are almost all pistol red dot optics, with a couple of screws through the bottom. And what that means is all the G-forces from the slide cycling are going to be distorted through those 2 screws, and that's going to prevent them from getting the long-term durability that they wanted in this. This was a collaborative project between Glock and Aimpoint. Glock expects their pistols to last 40,000 rounds, and so Aimpoint decided that they needed their optic to last the same 40,000 rounds. And if they had a couple of screws coming through here, that wouldn't be feasible. So what they came up with instead is the A-cut, which is, they describe it as like a ski boot, where you put the nose in, you've got wedges in all 3 different axes. You put the nose in, push it down, and then there are 2 screw holes back here, and you have a locking wedge. See that wedge shape right there? That locking wedge screws down here, a pair of 3.5mm screws, about 18 foot-pounds of torque, thread locker, and you're done. That wedge pushes the sight down and forward, and it's in both directions. It's pushing it against angled wedge surfaces. So once it's locked in, it's doing a couple things. First off, it's preventing the sight from moving in any direction, even with the allowance of tolerances on these different angles. If it's not cut exactly to the nanometer perfectly, you're still going to lock it firmly in place, and then any misadjustment is just taken care of in the zeroing process. And the 2 screws back here that hold this in place they're not actually taking any force because of this wedge system. So forces are being exerted either here on the front wedge or in the back. They're transmitting through this wedge into the back of the slide here, instead of exerting a shear stress on the screws themselves, which means they can get 40,000 rounds because they're not depending on those two screws absorbing the impact of the shooting. So that sort of effect is why other red dots out there have to have recoil lugs to absorb that force. There's no need here because essentially these two cuts in the slide are the recoil lugs. They were also able to use this system to get a nice low mount to the optic. So put the wedge back in. Standard height sights do actually co-witness through the very bottom of the optic. That makes the red dot nice and low, which makes it very natural to shoot with. One of the potential problems of red dot sights on pistols is when you mount the sight higher and higher, your reference, like your natural pointing of the gun, as the sight gets higher, it gets more and more awkward, and you're more likely to be spending time trying to find the dot. With the dot low enough that the sights can co-witness, it's much more of an experience of focus on the target, bring the gun up pointed towards the target, and the dot will simply appear in your line of sight in the correct place to use. Makes it a faster system. So as I mentioned, this was a collaborative project between Glock and Aimpoint because what we really want from a commercial side is the ability to just go to a store and purchase a complete package. That's something that the typical civilian concealed carry or home defense shooter is interested in. It's also very much something that military and police agencies are looking for. They don't really want to go out, buy a gun, and then go find a mount, and then go find an optic for it. They want to be able to just get a single package. So Glock was looking to be able to provide a package like that. Aimpoint was the natural partner to go to for a particularly effective and durable high-quality sight. As a result of the work that the two companies both put in together, Glock has exclusive access to the COAs for the first 12 months. So these are being launched right now, essentially at SHOT Show 2025. And for the first year, you can only get them through Glock. And they come as complete packages. I don't think Glock, in fact, I'm pretty sure Glock's not selling these as standalone sights. After the first year, Aimpoint will be releasing the details of the A-cut mounting system to other manufacturers. In fact, actually, I think they've probably already talked to a bunch of other manufacturers about what they need to do for A-cut mounting, but other companies will be free to use the system in a year, and then they'll be available in general on the open market. But Glock gets the exclusive start to them, hence showing these on a pair of Glocks for the time being. One of the last elements here that I think is pretty cool is Aimpoint expects there to be a pretty robust demand for these. They're pricing them to be significantly less expensive than the Acro P2s, which I think is really cool. That's only viable through high volume sales. And so where previous sights from Aimpoint are actually all hand assembled, all of the lenses are hand fitted and hand glued in place. All of the emitter diodes are hand set, hand adjusted, hand glued. They have actually set up a almost completely mechanized assembly line, roboticized assembly line for the COA. So they have a series of like 16 robotic machines that do the majority, almost all of the assembly work on these, setting the lenses, gluing the lenses, pressure testing the systems, setting the emitters, setting the emitters precisely enough that they are in fact parallax free, because not all red dot sights are actually functionally parallax free. In fact, you can see a little bit of the evidence of this. This opening, well, this separate plate in the top starts off as an opening through which a robotic assembler can come in and set the emitter and the other internal parts, and then that's permanently sealed at the end of the manufacturing process. So Aimpoint will have I'm hoping, a much more robust supply chain in place for these than they have with previous optics like the P2, and the price point is actually going to be substantially lower than a P2, that's pretty exciting. I think this is a really cool product that offers a package combination. Like, none of these things are like massively revolutionary changes. They're all substantial incremental changes that work together to make this a much more user-friendly product and system than a lot of the other optics out there on the market. And I think we'll look back once this sort of system really becomes the industry standard at the previous nightmares of finding an optic and then trying to figure out what cut it fits and what size screws you need, and do you have the right depth of screws for that particular optic, all those things are basically alleviated by the COA and the A-cut system. So now let's go ahead and take this, well, both of these, over to the range and do some shooting with them. We have a 43X here, and I have a 45 in the holster. So given that this is intended to fit on a compact, narrow carry gun, let's start with the 43X. To be honest, the thing is, it works like a red dot, which is kind of the purpose. If something attracts your attention to the optic itself, it's done something wrong. You want it to just present a red dot that you put on the target and focus on shooting, and that's exactly what it does. I really like the fact that it's fully enclosed. Having shot stuff like this in outdoor gunky matches, red dots on pistols, you get a little bit of mud on the inside of an open emitter red dot, and it's a mess to try and clean out and get operational. Something like this, wipe off the back or the front, whichever has gotten dirty, and you're good to go. There's not a whole lot to say because it just works. It's narrow. It looks less like a mailbox than the Acro P2. And it lets you just focus on shooting. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming out here. I think it's really interesting to watch the evolution, the development of pistol optics, red dot pistol optics in general. We've gone through so many different phases in what feels like a really compressed timeline, from individual different proprietary patterns to sort of quasi-universal to interface plates, to then quasi-universal patterns. It seems like it was just like last year that the hot new thing was quasi-universal optics mounting plates. And now we're getting to the point of optics that actually don't require deep screw holes into the slide, where they can be more universally mounted. And it'll be really interesting to see if one of these styles really takes over as a new general standard for the handgun market. If anyone has the clout and the market capacity to pull it off, certainly Aimpoint would be at the top of the list. So very excited to see where this goes. I think it's a really cool setup as it is. And big thanks to Aimpoint for giving me a chance to try one out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.